Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast with Phil Carroll and Kevin Hornsby. It's Sunday the 18th of June and what a scorcher we have. You've been in the UK this week, Kev. Enjoyed your time?
Yeah, the weather was wonderful. I was shorts and shirt all week, or a t-shirt all week. So yeah, it was.
Which is unusual for you in the UK because you normally come with with a full big coat on and
yeah, No, absolutely. So it was good. We had a nice trip down to Bristol. I was in London, Paddington, having lots of meetings as well. So yeah, it was a good week. I was exhausted though, so very tired.
Flight, and it takes out you. Well, I was in the Italian lakes this week. Well, Switzerland actually, but Lugano, which is pretty much on the Italian border, and it's fantastic scenery. If you've never been, I think you said you've not been to Italy, but certainly one of the best places to start is right in the north of Italy. You've got the lakes, you've got Como, you've got Lake Garda. And it's just some of the most amazing beauty. I sent you a couple of photos, didn't I, from the train ride that I took from Zurich. And I'll tell you, probably one of the most beautiful train rides you could ever take. It literally cutting alongside these lakes. It's, breathtaking scenery.
No, the pictures you sent me was like postcard pictures. Like crazy. It was crazy, yeah.
Went to a festival this last weekend in Oxfordshire. It's the start of the festival season in the UK, as you can imagine. You've got Isle of Wight Festival this coming weekend. You've got Glastonbury in June, but this was something a little bit different. It was called the Kite Festival, and there was a lot of famous speakers there. There was John Major was there, ex-Prime Minister, and he gave a really good speech for about 45 minutes on his experience of running the country, his meetings with the Queen over the years. Talked about Boris, obviously, which was very controversial, which we'll come on to in a minute. We also saw Joan Collins, the socialite actress, and she gave an amazing talk about her life. And you imagine, I said to the wife afterwards, I said, how old do you think Joan is? She's in her 90s. She's 90 years of age, and she's just absolutely amazing. She's on a new tour. So that was quite interesting, listening to her life and her experience with Liz Taylor and all that. It's quite a nice different slant on festivals, literary festival. And also saw David Baddiel, the comedian, who gave a great talk about Jews and etc. So good music in the evening. We saw Candy Staton did a really good performance and about a battle with cancer. So yeah, it was really, really nice way to spend the weekend last week.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Oxfordshire countryside. What more could you want?
Yeah, as long as it's not pouring down, it's wonderful.
Well, they hit the storm on the Sunday because we went on the Saturday, and there was all these alerts: do not go under trees. Make sure you. I wouldn't want to have been there. Literally, the heavens opened up on Sunday, and it was like, forget it. Would want to have been there. So what do you make of the old Boris Partygate? I mean, that's dominated the news for sure this week. Demolishes Boris Johnson's character and conduct, accusing him of lying, from being sacked for fabricating a quote to lying about an affair. His relationship with the truth has been consistently questioned. 40 weeks ago, he was Prime Minister, but now his career has been swiftly dismantled by his own peers. What are your thoughts on it?
I think what the report says is he is a liar, and I don't think really we can take away anything but that he is a liar.
Yeah.
If I heard a quote this week from one of his old teachers, and the teacher basically said that yes, Boris didn't quite understand why the truth should be involved in what he was saying, sort of thing. Basically, in paraphrase, what he was saying is that the truth didn't apply to him, if you like. And I see this as what's basically come about in terms of the report and everything else. There's no doubt this guy is very charismatic. He's very likable in some ways, unless you understand his policies. And then, he's been like a wrecking ball. That Katy Perry song, was it? Was it Katy Perry you sang?
It was Miley Cyrus, wasn't it? I think.
Okay, maybe Miley Cyrus, but like he's just come in and been like a wrecking ball for the last number of years. And
It's funny you should say that about charismatic, because one of the things Joan Collins said on the talk was she said she used to work with him because I think he was the editor or something at the newspaper at the time, and she was working under him doing some writing. And she said one of the things about him is he's an extremely charming and charismatic individual. So it is interesting because he wins people over with that, doesn't he?
Anyone who's met him, I think, sort of is endeared to him. They like him because, he is very charismatic. He is very, gets people on side because of who he is and what he does. So, yeah.
So, I
think if this chapter's finished, let's put it this way, this chapter's finished, but will Boris Johnson ever be the Prime Minister again? I think yes.
That's the mad thing about it. It's a bit like the Trump thing, isn't it? It's like no matter, you've got the staunch supporters who love his brutality and the fact that he gets away with lying, and you've got the similar vein, you've got the Trump supporters over there who would not believe a bad word to be said about him. Yeah, so you've got all these documents that Trump's meant to have hidden in his Key Largo villa or whatever it is, compound, and yet still people are still convinced that he's done nothing wrong, and he's convinced it. It's like, do they get to this God complex where they believe that what they have done is fine?
What do you mean? I took nuclear secrets and took the codes,
state secrets and the codes, yeah,
and they were in my shower. What's the problem? What?
And I'll show them at my drinks evening receptions to people like that. No problem.
If anybody goes to the toilet, they can have a quick read while they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's farcical. Whether it's as true as it's being painted by the press, who quite obviously hates him, or it's not as true. Who knows? I mean, honestly, you have to question everything at the minute, because
I feel like they don't care. I mean, let's not forget that these people are public servants at the end of the day, but they don't seem to serve the public. You've got a cost of living crisis. You've got the trust legacy she left. I'm not just going to blame it all on her, but she certainly lit the blue touch paper on that one. And we've got a really bad situation in the UK now with interest rate rises, inflation. They just don't seem to be able to get under control. And yet all we're fixated about is, what did Boris do wrong? When they're going to start actually serving the public and not being self-serving?
You want me to answer that question? Because we're not going to be able to.
When hell freezes over, I think, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Okay, so today's roast is going to be hopefully shorter, and also we're going to just cover the stocks that we started with at the beginning of the year, because we thought it was a good time to do it. Not actually because the performance is great right now, because it's not. We were actually up 40% at one point over a few weeks ago. We're now up 22, 23, 24%, something like that, depending on at what time you take the prices. So yeah, we're sort of looking at covering the first half of the year. So I think we'll start from the bottom up, because I think that's what we did the last time when we did it in the quarter. So what's your thoughts, Phil, then on Prospex Energy? I'm a bit flabbergasted that it's lower than when we picked it, to be honest with you. It's our worst performer with 40% down.
Yeah, I think it was one of those, wasn't it? It was sort of picked on the back of a good rise, and yeah, I mean, what is there been delays? Probably slightly later than anticipated. There was talk of first gas around of the second quarter of this year. And where are we now? We're sort of coming into the middle towards the end of it. So ultimately, I think there has been slight delays, and it has it causes a bit of a sell-off, really.
Yeah. And also, you couldn't have warranted the fact that the gas prices dived as badly as it has. So I suppose there's two factors in there. But the reality is it's going to be a very profitable business, even on the price of gas as it stands at the minute. So Prospex Energy is our worst performer, down 40%. And I would never have thought that, and that just about sums up the market, doesn't it? In terms of.
I think that once Selva comes online properly, first gas sales, and then obviously the big one is Tesorillo, isn't it? If you can get that one on in Spain, then that would be a complete game changer for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they have the ability then to multiply the amount of gas that comes out pretty, not quickly, but within say every 6 to 12 months, they're going to be in a situation where they can increase the amount of gas, which is, again, it's going to be a huge game changer, I think, because those places really need the gas as well. Okay, so moving on to Ben's Creek. Again, shocked, to be honest, 26% down, 15.5p. We picked it at 21.2p. Obviously, we went out in May to see that production should be starting to ramp up now to full production, and share price is languishing.
Yeah,
I mean the share price is not far off October 2021.
Yeah, when it first went.
When we first started following the stock at 11p, it's not far off that. And considering what has happened, it's bizarre. It's absolutely.
And again, that one's been a bit of a victim of the price of met coal and high vol A, high vol B. At the time when they came to market, they had the real run, didn't they, on the high vol A and B. But met coal really was rising into it.
It went up to $400 a ton, Now it has actually, it went very low to 180, I think it is. Started recovering again now and was up again, I think, yesterday. So it's sitting at, I think, 195, I think it is, nearly $200 a ton. If we see a recovery in the met coal, then I think Ben's Creek's going to be a hell of a good performer in the second half of the year. Yeah. If we don't, I'm not sure what's going to happen. But the reality is that we've had a big buyer in at 18p for 29.9%. I don't think there's any doubt that ultimately, if you look around the market, all of these steel producers are trying to secure their met coal supplies. So I think Ben's Creek's in play, to be honest, and I think the chances of it being bought are probably pretty high going forward. Let's just hope it goes at a reasonable value, if that comes to fruition.
Then we've got BSF Enterprises next on the list. We obviously went to the showcase event. They had the news about the OTCQB listing as well, which obviously was great news to see them in the stateside. And I think they're going to do a road show that was announced as well to market. There was also the broker note from Shard that Josh wrote. What are your thoughts on why that one's down at the sort of 11.2 range, which is 25% down on the portfolio when we said it was around the 15 pence, I think, as a buy.
Yeah, I think if we'd said this at any other time other than the last few weeks or maybe 6 weeks to 8 weeks, this would have been one of the shares that is up and done well. So I'm a bit surprised. There's obviously been a seller in the equation. Don't know why anybody who paid 17p in the raise would be selling. So it must be initial shares that were bought if they're making a profit, that is, on the sales. Everything's in place there. Do you know if they could announce some stuff that they can't announce? I think this will be significantly higher than it is. And we don't even know who's involved ourselves, but ultimately there are some big names involved in this. And it's going to be interesting second half of the year as well as it progresses, and in the UK and in the US, as well, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, all three of those, I would not have said to you at the start of the year. They were three of our ones that we thought, hey, these are really safe bets. And here we are, the three bottom producing as it stands. But let's see what they are by the end of the year, because I'm not convinced that's still going to be the case. But we will see.
Yeah. So
now
Greatland Gold, Greatland Gold, I can't believe it. Just looking at this list, I can't believe it's dropped to 6.6 pence, and it was around 8p when we were talking about it at the beginning of the year. I mean, it continues to defy shareholder expectations, below where many might consider its real value is. They signed over operating control of the Jury JV to Newcrest that was announced recently, entered into an enviable farming JV with Rio Tinto as well, which was announced, which was I think like 1,884 square kilometers of prospective tenure. That was very close to their flagship Havieron, backed by Wyloo Metals as well. We've mentioned Andrew Forrest on there, and soon to be in a JV with Newcrest Hybrid, which will obviously be the largest gold miner in the world. So what's not to like on that one?
Well, it doesn't add up, does it? I mean, again, it's the same as the others. It's 17.5% down, and it just doesn't really add up. I've nothing more to add than you've just said, because ultimately this time next year they're producing gold.
Yeah, I think that now is a good entry, isn't it, at 6.5 or 6.6? I mean, the lot of the Catalyst investors are waiting for the feasibility study. Do you remember that the Havieron one, which was due? I think it's due late summer. If you look at who they're in bed with, Newmont, Newcrest Hybrid, Rio. I mean, and then with all the backing, the Wyloo Metals, they've had the $220 million Oz debt commitment letter derived as well with the banks. We've talked about HSBC and IG. I mean, it's all.
I think they raised at 8p as well, didn't they? So I mean, again, and that was a discount at that time, obviously, to make sure it got away. And now we're sitting at 6.6p. So yeah, strange one. And another strange one. I mean, I know we keep saying the strange ones. Is 16% down is Contango Holdings.
Yeah.
Who is now producing coal.
Yeah.
And we know that they're profitable because basically they're making $45 to $50 a ton minimum on someone collecting the coal from the gate, and they've an off-taker. So we haven't had news yet of the first revenue, but it can't be many days away. And here we are sitting at, we've tipped at a 5.3p. And again, I'm shocked I'm shocked that it's where it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I concur on that one. I mean, it's bizarre that it's around the 4.4 mark. I thought that one would have been double where it is right now, based on or even higher than that, based on the first coal. We've seen some really good tweets from Contango's Twitter account showing the wash plant and all the coal there, and yeah, I can't fathom out why it's where it is.
Yeah, we'll have to get Carl on again in the next few weeks, hopefully, and see what the situation is. Next one then, Jubilee Metals. It's actually down 12.5%. It was down significantly more than that and up significantly more than that earlier in the year. There has been some delays in terms of the copper in Zambia, but I think most of that is now behind them, and they're going to be producing copper like there's no tomorrow for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and expanding that footprint of copper. I mean, I don't think anybody quite realizes the amount of copper and the amount of copper tailings that exist in Zambia. It's like 1 billion tons, I think it is. 1 billion. Take that into perspective. Now, if there's 1% of copper in that, which is higher than that by all accounts, but if there's 1% of copper in that, I'm not even going to do the maths, but you do the maths. And Jubilee Metals, platinum, whatever, when they already have a strong base with the platinum and the chrome in South Africa, just outside Johannesburg, again, it's a much bigger company than some of the companies that we've talked about, but can't see how this isn't going to be effectively a money-making machine going forward, especially with the need for more and more copper in the world as we go forward.
Well, did you see the announcement that they announced, didn't they, this week or this last week, that they had a new partnership agreement for the PGM and chrome operations in South Africa? They expanded the operational chrome footprint by a further 360,000 tons per annum processing capacity. So that looked really good.
Yeah, and it has gone up in the last few weeks. I think on that news and on the fact that people are starting to realize, hey, this is a really good investment to be thinking about. I mean, I really think this is one, for people's pensions, and just sit there and hopefully it will continue to grow. I've said to the CEO before that I think it will be £1 billion company, and right now I think it's worth a couple of $100 million at the most. So yeah, again, let's see where it's at the end of the year in terms of how it's doing, but it has progressed quite well in the last couple of weeks, but still way below where we were talking. Yeah, it's 250 million market cap as we speak. Okay, so we're moving now into territory of not really down that much, because who knows, the buy and sell price is possibly how much this is down, if you understand what I mean, the bid and the sell, or the bid and the offer. So we're talking about Galileo Resources.
Oh, yeah, I like this
one.
What's
your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, this is the Kamativi lithium project, isn't it, in Zambia? Is it in Zimbabwe, that was announced in the week? They'd announced that a contract had been signed for a diamond drilling program, following on quickly from the discovery of a substantial lithium anomaly in the soils on the Kamativi license EPO 1782, which adjoins the historic Kamativi tin tantalum mine. Galileo obviously doesn't have an interest in that, which contains a significant lithium tailings resource. So I think there was some initial soil samples that they peaked at 1,000 parts per million lithium, extending over a strike length of almost 3 kilometers, comparable to the footprint of the Arcadia lithium project near Harare, considered to be one of the world's biggest hard rock lithium resources. So yeah, it looks, this soil anomaly looks really good. They've moved quickly from that discovery to a drill program at Kamativi, comparable, as you mentioned, in size, which includes the 42.3 million ton Arcadia deposit. And they're going to evaluate the target with an initial drill program to test the stacked lithium bearing pegmatites, and results will determine the extent of follow-up drilling. So I think that one, in this market where lithium is really, really, like, it's much needed, isn't it? Let's face it, lithium seems to be the hot topic right now.
Yeah, and I mean, Galileo's not a one-trick pony either. It's got a hell of a lot of assets involved in it. And also the £5 million that it's due from the sale has got to be coming close to conclusion. However,
yeah, they've got the Glenova sale, haven't they, the Africa?
However that works out. But you've got a market cap of between 12 and 13 million pounds, with probably half of that, when the Glenova thing sorts itself out, in cash or cash equivalent. So yeah, again,
It was a really good tweet from.
I'm a bit flummoxed why again this is where it is.
Yeah, there was a really good tweet. He's in the field at the moment. He put a tweet out saying, Martin and I doing the rounds of the earth-moving contractors in Johannesburg region, upwards and onwards, mining AFP GLR Bazant. So there's a picture of him stood right next to one of the old big, it's actually a trollop, but it looks pretty much like a cat. One of the Caterpillar machines. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I did see that picture.
Did you see that? It's a really good one of Martin there. And then there was more equipment on site. There was a really good one of nice little mobile rig ready to trundle around the Shinganda project, testing all the targets. That's another, obviously, one of Galileo's assets. Yeah, I mean, Lou and Sobe. I mean, they have got a lot of assets, and obviously the Bulawayo project as well. So I think they've got a good 5-6 really world class assets within that company, haven't they?
Yep, that one is eventually going to be worth a significant amount of money, as far as I'm concerned. Now, then, basically, we move into the ones. So we've got 6 that we consider significantly, or not significantly, but from 40% to about 16% down. And then we have Galileo, who is not quite break even, but down a little tiny bit. And then we've got these 5 stocks now that are effectively are in the positive.
Yeah.
So
last week's roast, wasn't it? Sovereign Metals. We had Sapon on.
Yeah. So Sovereign Metals up 11%. Again, we had Sapon on last week. There is lots of news to come on that one going forward. Again, I see that having a very good second half of the year. There's a lot of stuff going to happen. And yeah, I think another one that, just like Ben's Creek, if you've got some of the biggest off-takers in the world wanting to be involved in your project, what they're going to do, they're either going to help the project or they're going to buy the project out, one or the other. And Sovereign Metals is in that position, I think. So, yeah, I think potentially going to look good for the second half of the year. What do you think of Helium 1 then? Up 20%.
Helium 1. I mean, obviously, they're still the rig was secured and everything. I think they're gearing up to the season for their for the drilling campaign there. Yeah, I think it's looking really strong, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, if they hit, do you think we're going to go back to the 20p's plus as it was?
I think there's every chance of that, isn't there, really?
Yeah, I think it's very, very likely.
They had a CPR release, didn't they, at the sort of back end of May on the Thai prospect. There was a 61% increase in the 2U1 helium prospective resources. So that's their project in Tanzania. So that looked really nice, actually.
So moving on to the next one, which was African Pioneer, up 32% roughly at 2.9 to 3 pence. Great news in that from the majors they're involved in, both First Quantum and Soundfire. It was interesting, the news this week that was it one of the big gold, Barrick, I think it was, are trying to buy First Quantum. They approached First Quantum to buy them out because Barrick basically wants exposure to copper. I wonder why they want exposure to copper when they're effectively a gold miner. I wonder which is going to be the next gold. Is it going to be copper or is it going to be gold itself? It's going to be an interesting scenario. Why would they want to buy First Quantum, do you think?
Pretty obvious, isn't it? The amount of copper that, I mean, they are one of the biggest copper producers in the world, aren't they? First Quantum with the Sentinel mine and everything like that. And obviously they've got the report that they put out. This is in conjunction. They do a quarterly report, don't they, for African Pioneer. Then they confirm the presence of mineralization with this diagnostic regional geological and architectural similarities apparently consistent with the Kamoa-Kakula deposit mineralization located in the DRC in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we've mentioned this before, haven't we, that there's potentially similarities there extending across. So it looks really good. The multiple high-grade copper intercepts peaking 8 meters at 1.25% copper. They're going to followed up on the Turaco prospect. Diamond drilling in 2023 will focus on targeting reduced diamantite in the Western Foreland target, as well as testing the depth extent of mineralization at the Turaco target. So yeah, Colin was very upbeat. He said the discoveries made during the last quarter and the resulting report are groundbreaking for our partners and AFP shareholders. The apparent confirmation of the extension of the Western Foreland and presence of key vectors possibly consistent with the Kamoa-Kakula style of mineralization is an exciting discovery and potentially paves the way for the delineation of the type of copper resource that could be transformational.
I mean, and when we interviewed Colin, he was so excited about this. It was bizarre. I've not seen him as excited about this in all the times I've interviewed him. So I think that tells you something. And at the end of the day, they've also got this copper deposit in Namibia that is going to start being mined. Don't ask me to name the names because I'm rubbish at names, but what was it? Ongombo, is it?
The Ongombo project. It's not easy to say, is it, that one? I always think of that drink, the Umbongo, but yeah, it's Ongombo. It's in Namibia. But yeah, so they had an environmental clearance, didn't they, on that one in April?
Take the two majors out of this equation, okay? So you've got First Quantum and you've got Sandfire. Take the two majors out of the equation of African Pioneer and just look at Ongombo and the potential to produce, as Colin said, I think in the interview, 60 million, 70 million, 80 million, 90 million of revenues from the Ongombo project in copper. How is African Pioneer worth £5 or £6 million based on that scenario? And that copper's there. It's not like they have to find it. It's there.
Yeah.
So for me, if people get the message and understand African Pioneer, that really it could be a moonshot in terms of if either of the majors come off. But at the same time, it has the situation in Namibia, which will underpin any of the market cap, increasing. Then I think it's one of those that I think.
And we haven't even talked about the Botswana and the Kalahari Copper Belt element as well.
Yeah, which is Sandfire, I think. Yeah. So it's, the potential in such a small little company there is really, really immense. It really is. So, I mean, if people don't get it, I think for sure that's going to be on the list next year as well, even though it's doing okay. It's up 32%. Okay, so let's move on to the top two, which first we'll talk about technology minerals, up 53%. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm obviously like it a lot. I mean, we recently visited the Lybat plant in Wolverhampton, didn't we, about 3 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
We met Alex on site. We met Nick, the gentleman who's pretty much heading up the project there. There was a lot of boots on the ground. We had a tour of the plant. It looks like things are progressing extremely well, certainly were 3 weeks ago. So I'd like to think, again, we're another week closer to them switching the machinery on. There were a certain number of conditions that had to be satisfied for the EA. Obviously, the EA was given the approval, but under a certain number of conditions needed to be met, namely the purification system. So yeah, I'm just hoping we get the announcement over the next, couple of weeks that switch on has happened and it's all systems go there.
Yeah, that guy that we met, it was Nick, you said.
Yeah,
that was involved in all of the processing. He was seriously motivated about making this happen, wasn't he? Because he's been involved, I think, in the design, involved in the whole process all the way through.
Yeah, his dad was a coal miner, wasn't he? He designed most of the coal mines in the UK. So he kind of, from an age of something like 10 or 11, he was pretty much involved in building and fixing things. And you could see that passion. He was just so, wasn't he? He's like, if he was up to him, he would flick the switch today and it'd be running. But obviously,
he was desperate to switch it on while we were there, wasn't he? Because he could have switched it on. I mean, so you all understand the machine is switchable, onable, if you know what I mean. But he couldn't because of the EA stuff that still had to be done. So everything is in place there, if you like. Everything is ready to go. And I expect an RNS next week after. And then there's some sort of big press day, I think, in the start of July as well, where they're going to start talking about it. And then I think when they switch that, or when they flick that switch, how much information do you think that then Tech Minerals are going to be able to throw out? Because now they're actually physically doing it. I mean, from what Alex is saying, there's a store of stuff that they cannot say and cannot effectively put out until all of this is ready and working. And the other interesting factor we haven't really discussed, the revenue is going to be pretty sensational once it starts. But we've also got the lead acid battery license, which is going to come very shortly as well. And we've also got the fact that Tech Minerals is going to be basically taking over the other part of Recyclist. So all of those things are catalysts and things that are going to happen in the next 6 months. Obviously, some a lot sooner than others. So I see a spectacular second half of the year, even though it's already up 53%. I can see it doing even better than that in the second half of the year. And then we come to Chill Brands, about 8p, up 3%. 100% since we tipped it at 2.
Very well, but I would normally be a lot more excited about it. The premise that it has dropped back a bit from the sort of 14 or 13 and a half, 14p highs. What do you think's caused that sort of recent decline in the SP?
I think people realize the potential in it, want in, and have started playing with the share. We've had lots of shorts involved. We've had also lots of technical people involved saying, it's done very well and we're going to join it because it's done very well. And then there was a gap to be filled around 7 point something or other. That's just being filled, I think, on Friday. And then it bounced off that straight back up to 8p. I was trying to be sort of fairly calm and look at it and say to myself, we should be celebrating this. It's up 300%. Now, the granted, it was up 4.5%, 450% at one point. I don't think it ever was at 14p for anybody to sell. 13p, yes, but it was momentary in terms of that. But if we look at it now, what have we got? We've got a fully extended, as in when all the shares are out in the marketplace. We've got a company that's worth about 30 to 32 million pounds. We've got potential revenue from the US vapes, from the UK vapes, from the Middle Eastern vapes, where Callum is going next week to see some of the distributors in the Middle East. And I'm also going with him to the vape show to talk about what's happening in the Middle East. You've also got chill.com, which is putting on more and more products and going to have more and more traffic to sell all sorts of different products in this chill zone. Focusing on those things alone, those 4 things, how on earth is this share not going to be worth significantly more than that?
Revenues, mate. Revenues. That's what the market
no, absolutely.
I agree. Very well saying that. Just to be in a contrarian, I think that the UK, with all the negative press that disposable vapes have had over the last 3 to 4 weeks, is one of the factors that has also, not saying that casting doubt, but nobody wants to see that, do they? That the government or people are lobbying to push for a ban on disposable single-use vapes because
I partly agree with you, but I also know that from what Callum has said to me that they couldn't ban our disposable vape, okay, because it wouldn't be a vape because it doesn't effectively have nicotine in, so it can be called even something else and still be sold. So the concept that Chill Zero would be banned in the UK is nonsense because it couldn't happen.
I get that, you get that, but people use that to twist it for their own agenda.
Yeah.
You can see that happening.
There has been an agenda. Nothing rises from 2p to 13p without then someone jumping on the bandwagon and saying all the negative stuff that could possibly happen. And that's basically what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, we're sitting here at 8p. If you'd asked me at the start of the year, would we be happy from 2p to 8p? I'd be like, hallelujah, this is wonderful. Okay. So we've all experienced this situation now that has gone up to 13p. I don't think that I was over egging it either, to be honest with you. And I perceive it will be back there in the next few months at the very latest, because the scenario is it's going to be more and more and more tightly held. And, there are people who believe in this, and this being a bit of a unicorn story is building. Callum's experience, or not experience, but Callum is very, very switched on in terms of what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's just come back from the US. I think there's lots of things coming. And it's cashed up, sitting there with how much money? It's got maybe 4 million quid, 3 million quid, and revenues starting to come in. So, and I think there's also supportive shareholders there available to help as well if cash is needed to expand quickly. So, if you're suddenly getting a big order from XYZ supermarket or XYZ distribution hub in the US and they need to buy 1 million, 2 million vapes, then there's people there and already they're willing to.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding now, as you say, isn't it? It's getting them out there, getting the sales, getting working out how many've been sold, and good luck to them, and hopefully we can in another few months we can be saying, wow, the revenues look really good. As you say, they get the distribution out in all the different regions of the world, and everyone will be happy.
So I'm now going to put you on the spot, because that basically what we're standing at now is we've got a portfolio 22 and 23% up for the year, which considering the market is not too bad. If you had to pick a stock now that would be in the portfolio what would it be?
Well, I would have put acuity risk management in drums, would have gone in at 5p for sure if I could have added one, and I would have added that because that's had a fantastic run of late. And I still think it's only just really at the beginning of the story with the potential number of contracts that and agreements that could be won over the next 1, 2, 3 years. I think it's the bottom line looks good on it, and that's one that I would have added.
Yeah, as you know, I like the resource plays, but I'm tossing up actually between two. The first one will be gold and metal resources, because I really like the fact that the tungsten in the US is really required, and basically the US government are going to fund a lot of the work to get these done through grants and through different things. I think that one has a great chance. That's a rollout from Power Metal Resources, and still basically trading at IPO price, and I think that could do very well.
Good, and I think Rick Rule took a 4% position in that or something recently. I'm sure I saw a remark on that, which is significant.
Right. And the other one would be Ethereum, because of the way their model works and the fact that they're going to be trading and also then doing stuff with stuff in Rwanda as well. So I like that balance, and I think the trading alone can make it worth its current market capitalization. So any upside would come from any of the mining stuff that they get involved in, and I like companies that do this so that the revenue can be generated in some way and they're not always going back to the market for cash. Yeah, so I have to choose one, obviously. So, okay, I'm going for Ethereum, though I really do like the other one as well. So,
yeah. So should we quickly go through the remaining 5 gold rings? Just wrap up.
Yeah, the 5 gold rings.
Let's be quick on these because
yeah, let's put the 5 gold rings in perspective. Just first of all, these were chosen as investments which we thought could either moon or not do very well. Okay, and because there was things that could happen to them that we just don't know whether it's going to work or not. So the total portfolio is down 11.5%. Okay, so obviously the not do so well has worked better than the moon situation. So again, let's just start from the bottom up. East Star Resources was never your favorite, Mr. Phillip. Now at 2p after today's news on the rare earths. Any thoughts?
I didn't really, to be honest, I put it in the RNS list, but I have not really read. I saw that they weren't particularly the greatest of results, and I think the market kind of agreed because they opened up Friday around the 22% down from what I could see.
Yeah, okay, so basically what we're talking about here is the rare earth result has come back. The normal rare earth leaching, or not normal, the basic leaching hasn't worked very well. The acid leaching has worked reasonably well, but needs more work to finalize it. It's basically a will it work, won't it work situation now. So obviously, as we're in this type of market, it is and is down 37% or whatever to date, and down over a penny as we record this. So its main hope was always the copper, okay? Always 300,000 tons of contained copper right next to Glencore processing plant in Kazakhstan. And that was always the great white hope. The rare earths is why I got involved, and I am an investor. And the scenario was that the rare earths could basically blow the top off this. But as we talk about value being created, the copper, as we've talked about copper quite a bit in this, is still there. And they're going to start drilling to confirm it even more. But there is a JORC report, I think, on it. And there'll be many factors of this price if the copper starts being dug up and produced through VMSs. So volcanic massive sulfides, which basically is it's effectively where the Earth's crust pushed up all this matter into this VMS, and the VMS holds copper. And there is a whole load of these, and they effectively will dig them up and hopefully get copper. So moving on to the next one. Alchemy Capital Investments, down 34%.
Yep.
At 185.
Didn't we this week? I think there was Rishi mentioned them.
Rishi mentioned them in a report. But the reality is, until the cash lands,
and they get an idea of funding, I can't see that one really fluctuating too much because it rose from the sort of from 50p up to the 250s, didn't it? Had a really good run when it got on the radar.
Well, we tipped it at 280. It was very high there at Christmas, if you remember. So our buy-in price was £2.80, hence the reason why it's down at down 34%.
Yeah, but it was first mentioned on the podcast when it was around the 50, 60, 70p mark.
Yeah. No, I remember you doing it. Okay, and then the next one, Extract Resources, 11% down from our buy-in price of 1.8. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know what my thoughts are. I think it's still absolutely crazy. It's a crazy price compared to where it has been. I don't know what's driving it down, what's holding it down. I guess the sort of perceived lack of news, even though we've had updates on the study at Bush Ranger. We've had the Kikuyu Copper Project Zambia update as well of late. Not really much news since I think the beginning of April though, so maybe it needs...
You've got the gold as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the gold alone, Fairbairn Fairbride has got to be worth its current market capitalization, never mind anything else. So you're on a free ride if Bush Ranger comes to fruition. And I think there's still lots of work to do there, and hopefully the news will start to come in the second half of the year and we'll see a positive return in that one. Okay, what about Conroy, the mystery of Conroy Gold?
Conroy Gold, yeah, again, beggars belief. Results of late weren't there? There has been some results, has been news flow. Again, maybe perceived lack of constant news flow, results out there. What does the market want? You've got the JV in place, drilling results coming through.
I mean, since we tipped this, they have announced 123 grams per ton discovery of a new strike, and it's still lower than where we put it. It's absolutely bizarre. In my view, bizarre, crazy.
Not a lot more we can say on it, really, is that. And I think the final one on the rings that's performed the best is Galileo Resources, which is up about 20%. 0.2 was when it's now around about the 5.1 mark. Obviously, the Oran Cross Graphite project, we've talked about it. We've had Mike on in the past. Many samples or multiple samples have been sent to China for testing, past the key project screening test set by the US International Development Finance Corp. Potential terms of a binding grant agreement would include DFC funding 50% of the DFS costs, $4.5 million in funding, and DFC getting right of first refusal on debt finance for the full project implementation. That solution would leave Brez with around 100% of the asset, with the current York resource currently at only 2% of the total possible deposit. I mean, yeah, it looks very, very, very good. I think they've got bulk sample results due back shortly, and the company needing to find £62 million in several years to develop the mine. They've also raised, I think, $635,000 in a recent placing. So what do you think of that one? Do you think it's still got potential to rise higher from these levels?
Absolutely. I mean, it was up at 6p there only a few weeks ago, I think, and then back down at 4p, I think, again. So it's moving all over the place.
Yeah.
But the actual project itself is worth many multiples of the current share price. So again, it's going to be down to the good old finance situation. Finance gets involved via probably, I believe, in some sort of offtake agreement, and then it's probably going to skyrocket because it's worth significantly more. Now, the graphite prices, I think, have started to come off, as in they're a bit lower, mainly because this whole EV story has slowed down. Yeah. But I think we're going to have a situation where then reality will come back into place, that the graphite is still not there. We still don't have enough graphite. So then, yeah, I expect graphite, lithium, copper, all of these stories to be a much more interesting story in the second half of this year, and also gold as well. I expect gold will start to increase in value and go above the $2,000 as we see again. I think the dollar start to fall slightly. It was quite interesting when the Fed met, and then they said, no, we're not going to increase, but we might increase twice by the end of this year. Why did they say that? I think they said that because they wanted to protect the dollar. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But they were protecting the dollar there because they knew that if they said there's no raise or it's not going up, and they didn't give any guidance, then the dollar was going to get sold off big style. And probably gold would have increased rapidly as well. So
good.
Yeah, we have interesting times ahead, I think. But from the overall portfolio, what do you feel about being 20% up? Is that a good result?
I think in this current market, it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was higher the last couple of weeks. I think you're still seeing a little bit of a sell off in some of the stocks. I think you've got the usual selling May go away crew that will probably come back around September once the holiday season's over, and I'm hoping we've got a good run for the latter part of the year. You know, the beginning of autumn into winter. I do see some signs of positivity there. Still yet to be convinced that we're that we're in a proper bull market. Still see a lot of bearish signs, but I think it's a good roundup to do in June. You know, we're half a year in, and it's certainly better performing than last year's portfolio was at this time at the midpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. No, when I was in London this week, I was speaking to some people, brokers, and they were saying that a lot of the broken houses are really setting up for the second half of the year, that they see there are green shoots and a few sparks in the market, that few IPOs, big IPOs, are likely to come off in London, even though there's been talk this week about IPOs that didn't happen in London. But there's a couple of big ones that are likely to happen. And I think once that IPO situation starts to kick off, then people are going to start to get a bit more confidence, and we'll see more money returning into the market, I think, and into the small cap markets.
Let's have a look at the week that was, the movers and shakers. The one that appears on my list as being the best performer was Red Rock Resources. RRR is the ticker. A good week, as I say, over about 80% up on the week. They had received an environmental certificate to begin the production and sale of lithium in Zimbabwe. So again, very much a hot topic, the lithium sector. The company said they are in a position to start shipping product immediately. Red Rock will make announcements about major lithium shipment developments in due course. So very, very, very exciting.
Yeah, good.
And the shaker was AMTE Power. I don't know a massive amount about them. They are a ion battery manufacturer, and they plan to raise additional funds to achieve their goals. Basically, it was they drew down a new loan facility of £580,000 and $1 million, £1 million under the convertible loan facility. The company has been in discussions with potential investors for further finance and needs to conclude fundraising within the next 4 weeks. If additional funding cannot be secured, then obviously the prospects for shareholder value recovery would be uncertain. So it dropped 80%. On Thursday, that was a shocker. So not nice to see, is it? But when you get these RNSs where they say that they cannot guarantee the future because they don't know if they're going to get any fundraising, then obviously, what can you do? You know, how is that? How else should the market react?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one, isn't it? You know, the whole situation is up in the air. We haven't been dealing, sorry, I should say, for the last 18 months with a normally operating market.
No.
You know, the market, I say normally operating market, maybe this ultimately is what a down market looks like, that, things just don't make sense in terms of what we see and what's actually happening with the share price. So when that connects, that what we see with the share, what's happening and what's happening with the share price start to link up again. So good news is seen by an increasing share price, and bad news, yes, is the negative share price. Then that's the good, because what's been happening so far is good news, share prices have not really reacted as much. Bad news, they've got absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
So it's we need that disparity, if you like, to finish. And then we're in a better situation, I think.
Shout out as well that goes this week to Ed McDermott, from CEO of Seed Innovations. They had a really good week. I think they were up about 30%. Long overdue rise on that stock. They basically announced that the portfolio company Northern Leaf has been awarded Good Manufacturing Process, GMP, accreditation for its cannabis flower product as an active pharmaceutical ingredient. The award was made by the UK's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA, and opens the doors to exports to the EU. So we obviously saw that with, Celadon had already been awarded one in the past, hadn't they, on the GMP, and we talked to Jim about that. So it's good to see another company, Northern Leaf, being awarded the GMP process.
I didn't mention it to you, actually, so I'll mention it to you now. But we've been invited to go and see the thing in Celadon Complex or whatever in July. So maybe we'll take a trip down there and see what it's.
That's in the Midlands, isn't it? It's in Birmingham, I believe.
Yeah. So I think that's around 11th, 12th July. So maybe we'll go and have a look at that.
Good. I mean,
so yeah.
In terms of the wider market, as you alluded to earlier, the Fed maintained interest rates for June, but hinted at the possible rate hikes later this year. And then obviously in the UK, there's been a hint that I think it's today, at the end of the week or even maybe early next week, there's potential that there'll be an announcement of another interest rate point rise, crippling many, many more, mortgage, borrowers who potentially are coming off the fixed rate, as we alluded to last week. So it's looking tough out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Things haven't, we had a period of time where I thought it was really going to have green shoots and it was going to come, and then it sort of lulled that back down again a bit.
I think we're all just starting to see that the fallout as well from these mortgages. I think it's going to be another six months to a year, if not longer, where we see, sadly, some fallout. But anyway, onto a more positive note, let's say, I'm going to say it pains me through gritted teeth. Well done, City, on the win last Saturday. I mean, I did say that it would be a never, but never say never that a team would match United's treble. But well done, City, you did it.
You had to put United in there, didn't you?
I had to say United, but what I will say is Manchester City. It's another Manc club, so I'm all for that. Wouldn't have the Scousers, wouldn't want them to do it. So fair play. And I remember how it felt in '99. That the feeling you get from achieving that. As a fan watching, it's brilliant. So fair play, enjoy it, lap it up, City, because any City fans, because it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, congratulations.
And what about the Ashes? We got the build up to the first England-Australia Ashes test from Edgbaston. I'm looking forward to that one.
England to bat first in the opening Ashes test against Australia. First ball. We're actually recording this on Friday morning, so the first ball's about to happen, I think.
Could be over by
Saturday. Let's hope it's not 0-1 after this podcast finishes. So indeed. So enjoy the weekend, everybody, and we'll speak to you next week.
We'll be back in a week with more podcasts. Have a great weekend.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.